Interesting keynote by Gerard from Nokia, and as a great trend he has set for the day by summarizing what mobile has done in India. And I'm about to talk to you about internet, but when you talk about a billion internet users, it points to only one thing, and that's mobile, 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 right? Initially, the topic that was given to me to talk about was building a billion mobile internet users. The task was so daunting that I changed it to enabling. So while I know that at present most of the developers must be very high thinking about, the $1 billion of Instagram kind of instant success, but I think it's time to get back to our drawing boards and think about the potential, the immense, unbelievable potential that India has of getting 1 billion internet users online in the next decade or so. And when we think about that, I think, as I said, it's quite evident that mobile is going to play the key role in enabling the affordable access. It's also important to think about that today we are at 100 million or so internet users, and the English internet, the kind that have been built by the global companies, by Google, Microsoft, Facebook, all of these companies, is probably going to stop at 150, 200 million users. It will cease to scale in India. And so the question that I have encountered across the world, wherever we have spoken, wherever we have partnered with carriers, with the ecosystem, with application developers, they have one key important question that they've all heard about, and they all in part understand the 50 million or so internet users in the country today, right? I mean, they're English speaking, the top echelon is global, they all adopt Google, they all adopt the social networks of the world, Google+, Facebook, they have, various kinds of devices, smart devices in their hands. But what about what's coming next, right? And what will set the trends for that? So I think it's difficult to, have a crystal ball and say that this is what the internet of future will look like. But what we can talk about, and what I'm going to talk about as a science today, the science that we see on the mobile internet every day. My job at Google is to look at partnership solutions in the mobile domain. So every day morning I get up and the first thing I have to do is look at the dashboard. We are a very data-driven company as such, and that forms prime part of the job. Look at the dashboard, what the world is doing today. And it's a very humbling experience to see the India dashboard evolve exponentially every day in every domain, whether it's search, whether it's maps, whether it's YouTube, is just exploding out there. And those, among other things, are setting the signs of what's to come. So I'm going to talk to you about today and focus on some of the 12 mobile internet trends which are setting up the scope and laying the foundation of bringing in the next set of 900 million users online. So let's see the first trend. The smartphone shipments exceed PC shipments in 2011 in India. Actually, that almost happened in Q4 of 2010, which is and it's a global trend. I'm sure you all must have heard about it. And this is 1 year ahead of the prediction that the industry expert Maddie Meeker made. So it's very interesting. It's not only happening in India, but it's happening ahead of its time. And this is setting the trend, and it's one of the foremost signs of the fact that mobile and tablets are going to make the internet affordable, right? And that's very obvious. And PCs are, probably going to dwindle in their importance as we go ahead. So let's look at trend 2, smartphone sales. Now when we talk about mobile phones, of course, India has a 200 million device market every year. But what's important and what's really driving all this usage by many, many times, and we'll see, how many times that is soon, is smartphones. And we believe at Google that smartphones has hit an inflection point. Analysts predict that we'll touch 100 million smartphone shipments per year by 2015. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if we do that before. And so in a way, this is, this audience here, the developer audience here, the business audience here, has the privilege to see together with us, what's really coming up. And so whatever you see in the country today, whatever numbers you hear in the country today, are all very, very small as compared to what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years. We are sitting at a very, very interesting phase of India's internet and mobile internet evolution. As you can see in this graph, smartphones, and you can multiply everything that is happening on smartphones, whether those apps, whether it's the full fidelity internet, is going to all multiply as these years progress. Now, this is an interesting one, and it's not so very unknown. There are various statistics around this. But as we can see in our logs, data consumption on smartphones is 18x versus feature phones. And this is, I believe, is both an opportunity as well as a huge challenge to the Indian ecosystem. Because very soon, you will see that all the spectrum that we have, all the bandwidth that we have with operators and ISPs is going to run out. Run out because of the very fact that, as you saw in the last trend, smartphones are scaling up, and then smartphones have this huge data consumption. When I speak to various analysts and go through studies and have conversations with operators, it's evident that smartphone users have almost 2 to 3x the ARPU of feature phone users in the same user segment. Now, that's quite relevant, right? In a country where ARPU is falling month on month, and operators are trying their best, along with value-added services companies, but they just can't stop that. They can't stop the ARPU from falling as we expand mobile. So I think it's going to fall to a certain extent, but then we have this opportunity to reverse that trend as smartphones come in, build the trust with the users back, sell them the applications, create businesses with them, and make telecom a more viable business for the entire ecosystem. So, and as that happens, I think we'll have to think very, very differently about how do we offload the data. It's not going to be like the situation in the US and Europe, where probably the 3G and 4G is enough. We won't have it enough just because of the sheer volume of users out here, right? I mean, today the 3G users are what? In the range of like 10 to 20 million users. Just take that to 100 million, and you will see that all the spectrum that the government has given is going to fall short. So if the government is serious about uplifting the internet economy, they will have to take disruptive measures to make sure that we are set up for success and we can actually scale up, and you don't see frustrated users as you see today among GPRS and edge users when they try to connect on the internet, right? I mean, you go away from the major cities and the frustration grows at the speed at which internet performs today. So this is an important indicator, and this is an important indicator for the developer community, that you have to build for scale. This is where the trend is going to. Let's go to trend 4. This is more akin to what we do at Google, and very close to our heart, because search, as we have seen across various devices, across various screens, is the starting point for access on the web. A search is just not meant for queries, and as you would know by your own experience, that people use search for, even if they have to go on a website. So search is browsing, search is social, search is local, search is commerce, search is a lot of things, right? And every day at Google, we try and tackle this problem. And it's not easy. It's not easy because, especially in a country like India, which is multilingual, which is multi-community driven, which has different aspects as you move from north to south. So, I don't think so we have solved the search problem completely. We are trying. And we have engineers and product managers and an entire team of people lined up to try and solve this problem. But the numbers here and search, and I want to share those numbers with you, are extremely interesting because they tell you the trend, they tell you the sign of demand that the users are coming up with, right? So search on mobile in Google itself has grown 170% year on year in 2011, which is huge given the fact that we started the year with a millions and millions of searches happening per day. So we are growing up on a large base. But what's even more interesting is the fact that the HED, which is the high-end device searches, grew 7 to 8x in the same year. So not only is the demand expanding across a set of users, across demographics, across prepaid low ARPU users, across devices, but it's also increasing in its density from smartphones. So the smartphone user is doing more and more on his mobile phone, right? I mean, and also to see that the maturity curve of what people are doing is changing. The trajectory is rising. You know, everything, as you all know, in digital world starts with entertainment, right? And we have seen that in India as well. So when I started, 5 years back, we used to get a few thousand, hundreds of thousands searches a day. And all those were like 95% of them were just entertainment driven. And now, across these 5 years that we've observed this data, it has majorly morphed into something else. It has evolved into a very smart, mature base of search queries where people are doing a lot of things. And among the important things, people are doing commerce directly on mobile phones. And we'll talk about that soon. So trend 5. This is as well important. It goes on, it sort of dwells deeper into our logs and our understanding of what people are doing. So this graph out here showcases what's happening in a period of day, right, across screens, across the web screen, across the smartphone screen, across the tablet, and across the desktop. So in a way, desktop, tablet, mobile phones are all complementary. So desktop queries rise in the day, mobile falls down. As the evening progresses, mobile queries go up, desktop goes down. And I believe that across the globe, there is a lot of screen roaming happening. This is how, if you think from an application developer point of view, and if you want to understand what's the trend of the future, that's one of the key trends. Roaming across screens. How many applications do you know have built fine roaming across screens and networks? They haven't. They really haven't. Even the most successful applications haven't been able to do so far very effectively. Even though you have the paradigm of cloud, everything is in the cloud, you can sync, but as you roam from your mobile phone to your tablet, to your desktop, I don't think so that's a very seamless experience, but that's the opportunity, right? And that's the opportunity as a global developer, not just as a local developer. When you talk about the Indian context, what's going to happen is that mobile phones and tablets, that's where the roaming will happen. I mean, you have a tablet, a sufficiently nice tablet today in India at like what, 6,000, 6,500 rupees. It's going to fall down further. And you have smartphones in the same range, right? You have a 7-inch, you have a 10-inch tablets. And so those are going to become the first computing devices for hundreds of millions of users out there, right? And so we're talking about 900 more million users. Obviously, more than half of them will have these tablets as their first computing device. So you want to think about, how users will roam and at what time the users will roam. There is an opportunity for innovation, even as you look at the time at which users do these activities. So going on to our next trend, and the next few trends are more about, those are the core trends. The next few trends are about rich media and about applications. And this video, as you would all very easily recognize, is a great example of a global viral video. It's one of the first globally recognized viral video from India. And as you can all see the trends online, it hit millions and millions of views through social networks, through YouTube directly, and through mobile phones. Now, what's surprising is the amount of views that we got from the mobile phone on this. Now streaming, right? I mean, this is not downloadable video. YouTube is streaming. So streaming does require sort of a better network on your mobile phone, a better screen, and you would obviously expect that the number would be less as compared to the searches on mobile, let's say, or the map views on mobile, right? People would easily be able to do maps rather than YouTube streaming. But no, the surprise is it's much, much more than that. It's 30%. So 30% of Kolawari, the views, YouTube streaming views came from mobile phones. And they were not all from smartphones, which is also a huge indicator of the hunger that the first generation of people who have feature phones have. These are your future users of smartphones, right? Because obviously the smartphones of today will become the feature phones of tomorrow. And so that's a great indication. Also, the mobile YouTube views itself in India grew many times over a period of a year in which 3G was not prevalent across the country, a year in which the number of 3G devices is still very limited. It grew immensely, which is, again, as I said, is a great sign of things to come. So you think about the next 100, 500 million users, one of the primary things that they'll be doing are mobile video, because video is almost the only application which is completely language agnostic and literacy agnostic, if you can say so. I mean, I know that the browsing interface and everything requires language and all that, but once a user can touch a screen and play a video, he can hear it, right? So it's not dependent on whether the entire Indian user base is literate, whether they speak English or Tamil or Gujarati. So going on to our next trend, now who doesn't play Angry Birds? Is there anyone who doesn't play Angry Birds in this room? Okay. Still have interesting users who have kept themselves focused on more interesting things in life, books and all that. One or two. The rest are, all followers of what's happening across the world. And so Angry Birds is a great representation of what's happening, which means that app development is as much local as it is global, right? And there's no reason why we can't be developing our version of Angry Birds and shipping it out to the world. There is development happening in Bangalore and Hyderabad, which is being done for offshores, which is creating animation and which is creating graphics like this. I think we've just got to put our pieces together, stitch our pieces together, and that will be possible. Just to think about the app development world, right? 11 billion apps so far downloaded on Google Play, 25 billion on iTunes Store, and interestingly, 160 million apps downloaded in India itself, up till now, approximately. So that is, spelling out what's going to be a sub-economy in the internet economy. If you think about the billion internet users economy in like 10 years from now, a sub-economy itself will be the app economy, right? And the barriers to entry for app development are pretty low. Now, you can just get this app development done without thinking about developing a full-fledged portal or business, which means that apps will become more and more local. And there have been stories which are very interesting stories, right, on smartphones. Like I've come across people who like an auto rickshaw driver wants to develop an app in which he can connect to his community and develop sort of a loyalty kind of fee which he can earn by passing his clients to others. So he has a follower of clients across the city, and he wanted that I should be able to have an app where I can get auto rickshaws booked in the city. Connect people, connect my customers with wherever they are, with whichever auto rickshaw is in the proximity. So that's an interesting thought, right? I mean, a auto rickshaw driver is thinking about it. So I'm sure that app developers can serve to these requests and come up with interesting businesses. The eighth trend is again pointing out to a very interesting statistic, which is that mobile is leading the internet growth in semi-urban and rural areas. By far, it tells us that there is access required there, and that access is coming from mobile phones. I'm told that I'm sort of running out of time. I have been carried away by all these trends, so I'll try to run these trends faster now. So this is telling us that again, the fact that how this economy is going to be enabled, right? How the fact that smartphones need to be cheaper, that mobile phones need to be accessible in terms of price and data plans. Trend 9 is, it starts with the point that I started in the beginning, that at 200 million, the English internet will cease. We will have to develop the vernacular, the Indic content out there. I don't think so there is sufficient content, nor is there a means to serve it across mobile phones. I mean, all our languages are not universal across mobile phones. That itself is a huge opportunity. It's a policy change. If a policy change is made by the government, I'm sure all mobile phones will comply, and that itself could give a huge upside. Trend 10, how many of you have booked a ticket on a mobile phone? A railway ticket, a flight ticket? Interesting. So I do see a few hands out there, which is showing again the trends. These are more latest trends. I did a ticket recently on Clear Trips, and what I found is that what's important is not just for desktop internet sites to be accessed on mobile phones, but for developers to build an optimized site for mobile phones, which have far greater senses than the desktop. Okay. Trend 11. So I'm going to skip the video here, given that we are out of time. But this is about a rich media ad which was built in HTML5. It sort of tells you the shape of things to come in future, of how people will be building the ad experience, not just the mobile application or the website experience, which is actually going to drive the monetization aspect of it, which is one of the most important things as we build the new internet economy. The last trend. This is, again, something we spoke about in between, that how the query mix is maturing. So you're seeing that people are doing more and more things on mobile phones. It's not just about entertainment. It's getting local. It's getting commerce-driven. And the devices, the way the devices are growing, they're bridging the gap between e-commerce and m-commerce. So people are not only doing impulsive buys, but we are seeing people doing planned buys on mobile phones, as some of you pointed out, that you actually went out and bought a ticket on your mobile phone, an air ticket or a railway ticket. So that's all from me today. Thank you very much. I thank the organizers for giving us this opportunity to speak here, and to you as a distinguished audience. Thank you very much.